Well, despite the fact that my Yankees are trailing the Toronto Blue Jays by 4 games now and don't appear to have a whole lot to cheer about, I'm still wearing my Yankee hat today just to make a stand. Because Dan Alstrand, of course, Blue Jays fan, and there's a few Blue Jays fans around here, as you might suspect, are feeling pretty good about themselves right now. And I don't blame you. It's been a nice run for the Blue Jays. I think 12 straight home games they've won. I think that they've set a record or tied a record. And, of course, they swept the Yankees in the last series and beat them again last night 4-1. But it's only July 22nd, folks, so just relax and slow your roll a little bit, and shall see how the rest of the season breaks out. But, look, the Blue Jays look good right now. They've got a team that gets on base and moves runners along and does the small things, and they get some power as well in Springer and Vladdy and a couple others that can knock in those runs as well. So and not a bad pitching staff with Max Scherzer going tonight, who look at the age of 40 or whatever he is, still looks like he's got some game. And not a bad time to be a Blue Jays fan. But again, it's still early, folks. The Blue Jays will have a bad string here, as it's inevitable. But it's late July and they're in first place, so that's good for the Blue Jays and their fans. I'd like to thank Vanessa Vandeness on the other side of the glass of the control board, doing a fine job as always. Thanks to Dan Alstrand. Speaking of Dan, who sat in yesterday, thanks for doing that. It was appreciated and did a great job as well. Lots to talk about, of course, what's happening here in Halifax and with Morris Street and with the Premier. And look, folks, this is just a story that people just continue to talk about for I think good reason. But as Dan rightfully brought up yesterday, I agree with his point that set aside the bike lane component to it and kind of dig into what's happening with the Premier and this power grab here in HRM and in the province in general. And I think it's a valid point that he makes. Is this, and I talked about it last week a number of times. Is this concerning? Is this an overreach? Is this a bad precedent? I think it's a good question. Speaking of the Premier, Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston missed the Pride Parade for the second year in a row. He said it was a scheduling snafu of some type. Catherine Klimak, a spokesperson for Houston's office, said in an email the PC party was on a wait list for Saturday's parade. When asked if Houston had tried to join another group's float to take part in the event, she did not directly answer. Look, folks, here's a question for you. Is this just an excuse and a bad excuse from the Premier? Is there more to this than a scheduling issue? I mean, I'm not a fan of passive-aggressive. I hate passive-aggressiveness. And to me, this is a passive-aggressive move. If you don't want to attend the parade, just wear it and say you don't want to attend the parade for whatever reason. Just own it, because to me this is just a lame excuse. First of all, if you did not book it in time, then that said something, because it obviously wasn't a priority. And secondly, if this was just your excuse out, then it's lame as well. So look, I would have more respect for somebody if they said, look, I'm not attending the Pride Parade because of, and give you a reason why. Even if I don't agree with it, I can at least respect that. But to just be absent from it for the second year in a row and through your communications team, through an email saying it was a scheduling snafu, to me that is weak. So I'm going to ask you about this. Do you think that Tim Houston's, do you buy his excuse, first of all? Do you buy his reasoning? Second of all, should this type of event be attended by the Premier of the province? I personally think that he should. But again, if for whatever reason he doesn't want to attend it, if he's not comfortable with it, then be honest about it. That's my opinion, and I'm looking forward to hearing yours. Also, is Houston hooked on power? Absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? That's the old adage. And when you have a supermajority, and can this potentially spiral out of control? This is something else that I'm going to ask you about, and some other things as well, and whatever else you want to get into when we open the phone lines in about an hour's time. So as mentioned, thanks so much for tuning in and listening, folks. We appreciate it very much. All right, this story. An independent assessment of the RCMP watchdog prompted by an anonymous email from employees uncovered concerns about favoritism, a lack of transparency, heavy workloads, and a toxic environment. The workplace assessment of the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission for the RCMP found a clear call for change and action at the leadership level to restore credibility and trust within the organization. Joining me to talk about all of this is Paul Palango, RCMP. He's been reporting on the RCMP for decades now. Recently wrote 2 books with the Mass Casualty Commission as the subject matter. Paul Palango, welcome to the show. We appreciate it.
Good to be back, Todd. Hey, New York Yankees, they're turning into the Toronto Maple Leafs of baseball. They've only won once in the last 29 years.
I know. It's unsettling for sure. I agree with you. Are you a ball fan, are you, Paul?
I covered Major League Baseball. I covered the Blue Jays in their first season. I went to 200 games. So I guess maybe.
Are you a Blue Jay fan?
Not really.
No. Little indifferent.
Yeah, I'm a little indifferent, but I really I don't like the Leafs. I don't like the Yankees. Never have.
All right, fair enough. What are your thoughts on this report? Or because and to be clear, this isn't about the RCMP. This is about an independent watchdog which was set up to take complaints about the RCMP, right?
That's right, and it's exactly what I've been talking about on your show and Rick Howe for years, that the problems in the RCMP are systemic. They are profound. And the public, many people in the public just don't want to hear it, don't want to see it. But more disturbing, people in politics, especially in Nova Scotia, aren't paying attention. This story, Jim Bronskill from CP wrote the story. Well, he did a story in 2020. The RCMP, another report, the RCMP is unsustainable. There's been the Bosterak report, the Braidwood and Cullen inquiries in BC, the Brown report, Alphonse McNeil's report on the situation after the shootings in Moncton in 2014, Linda Duxbury's report about how broken the RCMP is inside. I've written 5 books and countless articles, but the people in charge don't seem to want to pay attention to it. They either don't read, or they read and they don't understand it. Like Otto in A Fish Called Wanda. He said, I read philosophy, and Wanda had to point out to him, but Aristotle is not Belgian. Mm. They don't seem to understand how profoundly wrong the RCMP is and what's wrong with it.
All right, so this Ottawa-based review commission, how many people work for this commission, by the way? Do you know?
I have no idea how many work for it, but time and time again, people are finding the problems are profound. Yet, in Nova Scotia, we have a report saying, we want the RCMP to take over policing in Nova Scotia. Are they not reading these reports? Do they not understand what's going on, what the situation is in Canada with this force?
Okay, some would say that this is not about the RCMP. This particular report. This is about this independent watchdog, which would take complaints about the RCMP. So is that fair to criticize the RCMP about this particular story?
Oh, absolutely. Because it's pointing at the same problems over and over and over again. And I mean, you can't, you had a police chief on the other day talking about, Ryan Leal's talking about exactly the problem. They're the police and a lot of the public who are paying attention to this are mystified about how the how the Nova Scotia government can approve having a police force take over policing in Nova Scotia, when every report tells you there are serious problems with this police force and it doesn't meet the standard. I mean, Ryan Leal said we're highly trained. They are highly trained. Town police and city police in Nova Scotia are better trained than the RCMP and will continue to be so. But how do we get, how did the government basically say, we're going to go with the RCMP? What is going on?
Okay, so speculate. What is going on?
Well, I've told you before, that one of the problems is that the police servicing, the police services within the Ministry of the Public Safety is largely controlled by the RCMP. that the policymakers, and I'd like to know the names of all the policymakers because it's hard to find out, but all the key people appear to have ties to the RCMP, including the executive director who's been pushing this.
Okay.
It's like it's the it gets to the point where you have to wonder. And getting to your earlier comments, about Tim Houston. Tim Houston is clearly pushing having the RCMP as the provincial police force, and people within police services who have ties to the RCMP, like Haley Crichton, the executive director, is she's married to a Mountie. She worked for the Mounties. She has an interest in keeping the Mounties there, which is unseemly and seems to be taking orders from Houston, because no other way you can't explain this in any other way. And Houston is not the kind of guy who has the kind of values that I think are appropriate in choosing a police force.
Oh, so what do you mean doesn't have the values?
Well, Todd, before, he was elected by the people of Nova Scotia, but prior to that, he spent 12 years offshore doing work for rich Canadians trying to avoid taxes. He says, I didn't do anything wrong, I did everything legally. Well, I don't think that's the kind of guy who should be there deciding who the police force is, because I don't think he has the same values in policing as I do and others do in this province.
Do you think that I can't remember how many municipal police forces is in Nova Scotia? Are there 10, is it, or 11 or something like that? 9 or 10?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So do you think that those police forces outside of perhaps maybe HRP might be in jeopardy?
Well, they clearly are in jeopardy, but I think people have to, Nova Scotia has to wake up and see what the issue is here. Let's turn this around. The mass casualties happened in 2020. Can you imagine, if this had happened, it had happened in Truro or located in just Halifax, and a killer ran around for 13 and a half hours and killed 22 people in a jurisdiction?
Yeah.
What would the police services have done in Nova Scotia in the Department of Justice? They would have disbanded that force for being so inept. But what has happened with the RCMP? They've been protected and coddled from the beginning. I mean, Haley Crichton was appointed by Mark Feary, who was the public safety minister, ex-RCMP, appointed her, and she, as her first job, she was manager of the RCMP, of policing in Nova Scotia, her first full-time job. And 4 years later, she's the director of policing, advocating that the RCMP be the police force here. It doesn't make sense. The other thing about this, when the police review was announced in September 2023, they said, we're going to have this review, we're going to fix policing. Well, a few weeks later, the Dennis Daly, the assistant commissioner in charge of the RCMP, essentially the police chief of the RCMP, put out a statement saying the RCMP has its swagger back. Well, what was that based on? I think he was told right off the beginning, we're doing a review and we're going to recommend that the Premier wants the RCMP to be the police force here, and we've got your back, guys, don't worry about it, because nothing else makes sense. As I said, if the local police had been involved in the massacre and allowed it to happen, they would have been pilloried. The RCMP, everyone was allowed to retire or they got promoted. And the government and the politicians in Nova Scotia never asked a goddamn question.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. If it would have happened in Truro or HRP or any other jurisdiction, what might the government have treated it differently? And I think that's a valid question. I really do.
And the other thing is, you get Todd Leal on there. He was being very polite, talking as strongly as he could. Mark Kane from Annapolis Royal the other day, same thing. They can't say anything really critical of the RCMP because they all have memorandums of understanding and non-disparagement clauses, so they can't say bad things about each other. And the RCMP will hold their feet to the fire if they did. And one last point on this police review. showing how extensive this cover-up goes. That, you know, they put out a thing that said there was an advisory committee, including Dave McNeil and Wayne Talbot from Truro on the Public Engagement Advisory Committee with a whole list of community social justice people, and it looked like a legitimate thing. And I sent a note to Dave McNeil the other day, and I said, well, if you were on the advisory committee, how did you get involved in recommending the RCMP? And Dave's response was, our role was very limited and had nothing to do with the overall review process or the findings. I'm as puzzled as you are. And that's exactly the issue, that Tim Houston is going saying this is the best thing. Well, Tim Houston believes in the RCMP. He doesn't want to read anything. He's not the kind of guy who wants to correct mistakes. Forget history. Let's move forward. But this is not moving forward. They don't understand the issues or refuse to understand the issues, largely because the RCMP is guiding them from the inside. I mean, it's ridiculous. The municipal police are the best police you've got in Nova Scotia, the best trained. As Ryan Leal said the other day, they're all tactically trained. The RCMP, not. Right there, when you call the RCMP to your door, you may get someone who's capable and may not. When you call a municipal police force, you get capable people.
Okay, Paul, we're out of time. Appreciate it as always. Thanks.
Hey, who killed Corey Ellison?
Okay, thanks, Paul.
That question.
All right, take care. Paul Palango. When we come back, the premiers are meeting with the Prime Minister today in Ontario. Lori Turnbull when we return. All right, joining us for a chat is Lori Turnbull, Dalhousie University political science professor. Lori, thanks for joining the show as always. We appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having me, Todd.
All right, so not a lot going on politically in the summer, but lo and behold, we have this, I don't know, is it called a summit or what is this, a meeting with Carney and the premiers? What's going on here? What can we call this thing officially?
Okay, so officially it is a Council of the Federation meeting, so the premiers we're all planning to get together anyway. And then it ended up being that Carney is going to join them. I think he got there last night, and he's there today to talk about what's going on with the negotiations with the U.S. Mm-hmm. So Doug Ford is the chair of the Council of the Federation, so that's all the premiers. And I think pretty soon that chair will rotate. But for now, he's the host. Word on the street is they had a pretty good dinner at his cottage last night. So, yeah, and the Indigenous leaders are there, the AFN leader, Métis National Council, Native Women's Association, they were all there yesterday.
All right. The optics of this, some look at this and say it's in cottage country, as you mentioned, at dinners and good mm-hmm. times. The optics of it for many are, this is a glorified vacation. What are your thoughts on the optics of it? Is that fair or unfair?
No, I don't think it's a vacation, to be honest. I mean, it's a gorgeous part of the country, a gorgeous part of the province for sure. But I think the reality of the work that they're doing and the panic about the situation with Trump, I don't think Carney is going to have a really fun story to tell them today. I mean, I don't know how much they're going to tell us about it, but I don't think we have reason to be really optimistic that the negotiations with Trump are going super well. The letter last week where he's saying August 1st, there's going to be 35% tariffs across the board. That's no fun. Clearly, the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister have been trying to manage expectations, I think, for the last few days to say that there's not going to be a deal that doesn't include tariffs, probably, like that's the likelihood. Mm-hmm. And so the provinces are, having the conversations about how this is going to affect them specifically, how like tariffs on steel and aluminum are going to be affecting Ontario, and then there's softwood lumber in British Columbia. Everybody's affected. And so I think the questions and the conversations are going to be pretty hard.
I guess, and I agree with you. I guess what I'm getting at is that in the shadow of all of that, you still have the meeting in this kind of luxurious location and having a good time. And I don't want to belabor the point, and perhaps I am, but I just think that perhaps a more utilitarian type venue might have been appropriate. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, I've only been to Huntsville once, and it's amazing. And I'm from Cape Breton, which is the most beautiful place in the world. And right. I would still notice that Huntsville is absolutely gorgeous. And I take your point. Like, there is a certain amount of, like, anybody who has been up to the Muskokas, and even if you haven't, like, the place tends to be associated with luxury. Mm-hmm. This is a place you go if, like Algonquin Park is up there. Lots of people go up there to camp and stuff like that. Like, it's, different ways to unpack it. I mean, it's absolutely stunning. So if nothing else, they have lots of beautiful things to look at.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so what about Carney and the job that he's doing? And look, it's pretty evident that he's not getting it done. And I don't know that anybody could get it done with Trump, because we're dealing with somebody who's completely unreasonable and unpredictable and volatile and whatever other pejorative adjective I could think of and say on the air without getting in trouble. But
exactly.
So what is realistic can we expect from Carney with that dynamic?
Right. I mean, I just agree with everything you say. And I think every time Trump does something tantrum-like, it reminds people that Carney and everybody else are, like, there's only so much you can do. You can't do anything about the fact that there are things that motivate Trump that are beyond anybody's control. And I think he's quite dug in on the tariff question. He sees this as a source of revenue and a legitimate one for the United States. So it's not like he's going to back away. So within that, what can Carney do? Right? Like, can we see progress in terms of lowering the tariffs? Can we see progress in terms of some sort of time limit on the tariffs? We've done what Trump has asked on the fentanyl question, which the data don't support anyway, in terms of his claim that there's a fentanyl flow problem from Canada to the U.S. That's untrue, but we've still reacted to it, and we still we still put measures in place at the border, and that hasn't been enough. So there's questions too about, like, not only what can Carney do to kind of get through to Trump, but also what's the point of trying to take action in response to what Trump says he wants if it's not going to get us anywhere anyway. So I think the Prime Minister is in a really difficult situation. I think politically he has to come out of this with some kind of win, which is why he's trying to manage expectations about there still being tariffs, but maybe there's still a deal to be had in there somewhere. Perhaps some kind of security deal, so not necessarily an economic partnership, but I mean, obviously everybody wants to see some integrity restored to the free trade relationship that has existed between these two countries for so long.
All right, all this tough talk from the premiers, including Doug Ford, about cutting electricity off to the United States and all that we don't hear that rhetoric anymore. What are your thoughts on why?
I think we don't, because Prime Minister Carney and Donald Trump seem to have a different kind of rapport than Trump did with former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. I think the current Prime Minister is taking a different tone. He wants to keep things a bit more cordial, and Trump seems to respond to him that way, right? Like, even when he has his tantrums, he doesn't take anything out on Carney. It seems like he's able to kind of deal with him as one world leader to another. And so I think probably there's a sense that we're better off keeping our powder a little drier. But I also think we could see a change in tone if August 1st comes and goes and Canada doesn't get anything out of this. Like, it's possible that the Prime Minister is working with the premiers to say, look, keep your powder dry. Don't make these kinds of threats right now. Let's see what we can get in terms of just straight negotiations. But if this comes and goes and the Prime Minister hasn't been able to talk Trump into lowering the tariffs or removing the tariffs, I can't imagine that eventually, Ford will say something like, yeah, well, maybe you don't need our electricity then. But like oil, for example, is a different story. That's at a 10% tariff, which sucks, but it's less than 25 and it's less than 35 and it's less than 50. So you don't hear Danielle Smith saying stuff like we're going to pull the oil supply because it's not worth it for her.
Yeah, but again, what does that entice, or what does that motivate in response, right? That's the problem. Because Trump could say, okay, 35%, hell with you, let's go 50%. Let's go 75%. You just don't know what he's going to do.
Exactly. And it's not totally up to Danielle Smith either, right? Like, if Carney starts leaning in and says, all right, well, we're going to start making these kinds of decisions, then that's a whole different story. So that's part of the meeting up in Huntsville, too, is the premiers talking with one another about, softwood lumber is going to affect BC in a big way, and as is oil in Alberta, as is steel in Ontario, and how are we going to manage all this? Like, how are we going to broker between ourselves? And then that's where the conversations around the nation-building projects comes in. How do we kind of manage risk together when, Trump is obviously so volatile and the tariffs are just a mess for everybody?
For sure. Okay, Lori, appreciate it as always. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Todd.
All right,
Take
take care. Lori Turnbull, Dalhousie University political science professor. Most provinces are refusing hundreds of millions in federal pharmacare funding. We'll get to that when we come back. All right, provinces and territories that have not joined the new National Universal Pharmacare program are missing out on hundreds of millions of dollars in potential federal funding for cash-strapped public healthcare services. Stephen Staples, National Director of the Policy and Advocacy for Canadian Health Coalition, joins us to talk about all of this. Stephen, thanks for joining the show.
Hi, Todd. Nice to be back.
All right, so it's been 9 months since the Pharmacare Act received royal assent. Only 4 provinces so far have signed bilateral agreements. Which are those provinces?
Manitoba was the first, followed by British Columbia. In the Atlantic provinces, we have Prince Edward Island, and 1 territory, Yukon, have signed bilateral agreements.
Okay, so what do you think is going on here? Why have the other provinces, in particular Nova Scotia, not signed up?
That's a great question. It's something that we want to know. I think the federal government has been approaching all of the provinces and territories to open negotiations. The feds have to have a willing partner in those provincial capitals to move forward. I tell you, Todd, I'm here in Huntsville right now where the premiers are meeting. I just had breakfast with the premiers, had a chance to talk to a number of them, and those that have signed agreements are quite happy with the arrangements that they've made with the federal government. So I don't know what the holdup is. There's hundreds of millions of dollars on the table. We did a calculation based on a per capita of the 4 agreements that were done, and we think Nova Scotia is in line for about $170 million over 4 years to cover the cost of contraceptives and diabetes medications for everyone in the province. So we hope that the province will move forward on it.
Is it potentially partisanship at play here?
In some cases, maybe. There's certainly a strain of that when you look around the table where all the premiers are meeting today here in Huntsville. Some of them don't like the federal government. They may be quite proud to not be taking more money from the federal government when you think of some of the premiers out west. But I don't think that's the case in Atlantic Canada, where there is a much more constructive tradition of working with the federal government in terms of participating in national programs. So I don't see that being a factor in the east, maybe in the west, but we still think there's a lot of potential for growth here to make this pharmacare program a truly national universal program.
Okay, what are some of the, you already mentioned some of the things, but what's covered under this kind of, what's the umbrella?
Well, this has been a long time coming, and the legislation was finally passed last year, and as mentioned, about 9 months ago, it received royal assent in October, and there was even some money put in the budget last year to help cover for agreements. So they set up a structure for the health minister to negotiate funding agreements with willing provinces and territories to cover the cost of contraceptives, so birth controls, IUD, all that kind of essential medication for contraceptives, and diabetes. So that's insulin and pumps and other monitoring system, other equipment that you'd need for that. Those are just 2 classes of medication out of a much larger list of potentially covered, and the federal government kind of portrayed this as a bit of a pilot project. They set up an expert committee that's going to produce a report in the fall about how it's been going, although it will be early days. A lot of these agreements don't actually kick in until 2026, and they get funding over 4 years. But millions of people in some provinces will be able to get free medication. If they have private insurance, they're free to use that, but they can also use the public option as well too. And as we know, a lot of people struggle with paying for prescription medication. About 1 in 4 report they have to choose between paying the rent and paying other bills and paying the medication. They might cut their meds and things like that. So we hope that, first of all, we got to get more provinces and territories signed on so we get a critical mass for this program. And then second, we start expanding that list to include other types of drugs like heart medication and what have you beyond that. So we got some work to do.
Right. So who does everybody qualify, regardless of their financial or situation?
Yeah, you got it. That's the beauty of it. It's just like, when you go to the hospital, they don't ask you how much money you made last year or whether you have private insurance. So because it's integrated in with the provincial systems, it is a real universal program.
Okay, so is there some concerns about kind of integrating that with what's happening in the private healthcare and availability of drugs and all of that? Is this perhaps some concerns that you're hearing?
Well, there's no doubt that not everybody likes this program. And in fact, I went head to head with some of them at some of the committees in Parliament when we were arguing this last year to get this legislation through, particularly at the Senate, where you had not only the big pharmaceutical manufacturing companies, which they make a healthy profit from their products. Drugs are very expensive in Canada. It's a big cost factor, almost as much as doctor salaries in our healthcare system. And part of the objective is to not just get contraceptives and diabetes medications and other medications into the hands of Canadians for free. It's also to get the cost down, and so to have a bulk buying strategy between all the provinces and territories so that they can negotiate better prices from pharmaceutical companies. And, the companies don't like that, so they argued against it. Now, they weren't alone, though. The insurance companies, too, kind of popped up, which kind of surprised me at first. But the insurance companies thought that the government was honing in on some of their business, that they might be losing some customers because people will want to go with the free option rather than the private insurance. But the health minister at the time, Mark Holland, made it very clear. Look, people can make a choice. They're not interfering. The feds aren't interfering with the private insurance plan. That people will be given a choice. And so I'm sure that those companies and their representatives have been busy in capitals, not just in Ottawa, but all across the province, trying to hold this process up. But look, we got 4 jurisdictions in there now, Todd. We don't want to have a patchwork where some Canadians get free contraceptives and other people don't. That's not fair. So we got to make sure that we build this system out so that we get an equal playing field for everybody.
I would think per capita it would be more expensive if you don't have all the jurisdictions online, just simply from an economy of scale and a purchasing power. Is that accurate or no?
Well, we're certainly hoping. The calculations that I was mentioning was how much money each province received for those contraceptives based on a per capita basis. But yeah, if we could get those costs down and if we can get the federal government to negotiate better prices on behalf of all the provinces and territories, then it'll be a cost saving. And I'll tell you, this morning, there's other cost savings too, Todd. So, for instance, when you're talking about drugs and people taking their medications as, the full dose on the schedule that their doctor tells them to, they're going to heal a lot faster. And if they don't, they can end up in the emergency room and their conditions can get worse. And that costs the system more. And I was talking with Premier Eby from British Columbia today, just a few hours ago, and I said, well done, and glad you guys signed on. And he said, yeah, he says, we're keeping track of how much money we're going to save out of this, and we're going to know the economic benefit of signing on to this program for the overall health care of people in BC. So, boys, I'd love to see Nova Scotia be able to say the same thing in a few months.
All right. So, how long does the offer have an expiration date, or is it kind of open ended as to when provinces can sign up?
Yeah, there's no deadline that I'm aware of, but it's about momentum, I think. So we had 4 agreements signed just before the election was called, like right up until the last minute, until the election was called, and of course that delayed things. Nothing was going to get moved forward at that point. But now that the government is back, and of course they're really distracted, the Prime Minister is just down the road here, meeting with the premiers, briefing them on the situation with the trade war with the Americans right now, and so that's really top of mind, I'm sure. But we're doing our best to make sure that healthcare stays on top. There's going to be several hundred activists and frontline healthcare workers are going to be rallying outside the meetings of the premiers here about lunchtime, just to remind them that trade war's important. We got to make sure our economy works, but we can't have a healthy economy without a healthy workforce as well, and to make sure that healthcare stays on the agenda.
Yeah, and if you're somebody that needs these drugs and you're struggling in particular like diabetes, you are just saying, come on, sign up, right? Yeah.
Every month's delay costs people money.
Yeah.
And this is money they could be put in their pocket. And lots of jobs are at stake right now. These people could be losing their private insurance if they lose their job. That means more people the demand is going to go up for this, so the need is going to go up. And healthcare is, it's part of our social safety net. When people are having hard times at home and their families, they can rely on our public healthcare system to help ease the burden. And this is just another way to do it.
Okay. Appreciate your time, Stephen. Thanks as always, and we'll do it again. Thank you.
Thanks, Todd. Take care.
All right, take care. Stephen Staples, National Director of Policy and Advocacy for the Canadian Health Coalition. Online misogyny seeping into classrooms in frightening ways, according to experts and a teacher. We'll talk about this when we come back. I saw this story on the CBC website. Online misogyny seeping into classrooms in frightening ways, according to teachers and experts. Joining us to discuss all this is Luc Cousineau, researcher at Dalhousie University and director of the Canadian Institute for Far Right Studies. Luc, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks very much for having me, Todd.
All right, so I guess first off, the teacher Christine Emberley, who speaks out in this story, that's a pretty brave thing to do, I would dare say. What are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think we got to give a shout out to the great reporter that did that story, who sought her out and had that good talk with her. I think it's really brave for her to come out and say those things and share that information. Absolutely.
All right. What are some of the things, kind of just for those who didn't read the story, just kind of give everybody an overview of what she talked about?
Yeah. So essentially, what the teacher in the news story talked about was things that she has experienced personally in the classroom, and particularly comments that she has heard from young men and boys in the classroom, particularly around gender. So I'm not going to listen to you. Why don't you go get the man in charge? Or why don't you shut up and make me a sandwich? Are the two examples that are shared in that news story. And those are things that Christine Emberley has actually had said to her by young people in the classroom, which I think is pretty remarkable.
Mm. And it coincides or jives with the recent study that you've done on all of this, right? That you're, I guess, no surprise to you, I'm assuming?
Unfortunately not. No surprise to me. No surprise to us as a research team. I had a great co-researcher on this project, Amelia Sandow. And I mean, we found from data that we collected in 2023 evidence of the same thing that far back, really specific to a specific influencer. But no, this doesn't surprise me at all.
Okay, tell us about some of the work that you've done on this and so online social media and some of these influencers as well.
Yeah, so I mean, the study that sort of led to me being involved in the news story is really about the teachers community on Reddit.com, which, if listeners aren't familiar, is a very popular website that has different subject area subcommunities. So pretty much whatever you're interested, there'll be a community. And there's a very active community there called Teachers. It has about 2 million users right now. And our work there was gathering posts and filtering them really specifically for mentions of Andrew Tate. We were really interested in that one particular influencer, and that research originally was to help inform a project that we were doing with some great colleagues in New Zealand, talking to teachers about the influence of Andrew Tate and that kind of misogyny in the classroom. And so what we found was that teachers are talking about this, and that absolutely is a thing that's happening in classrooms. Our data is pretty North American focused. It's really hard to tell where people are from on Reddit, but very North American focused. And we know that because of the ways that they're talking about school and the language they're using. But we've seen this in New Zealand. There's great research in Australia, in the UK, starting in the United States as well, here in Canada, that's really showing that teachers, especially women-identified teachers and younger women, are having some real challenges in the classroom with men and boys. They're getting that information mostly online and mostly from influencers like Andrew Tate's probably the most famous, but there's some podcasts and some other influencers, and I'm pretty careful not to share those names.
Yeah.
I don't need more people going and seeking them out. But
Sure.
it's really clear that they're getting that stuff from those folks.
And of course, kind of bouncing up against this whole debate is freedom of expression, freedom of speech, and that, I guess, is probably the default of those who say Andrew Tate and others deserve a platform, and they don't deserve to be. And if you don't agree with the subject matter, it does not justify censorship. What's your response to that?
Well, the problem is that if you don't agree with it, you can't avoid it. There's excellent academic research that demonstrates if you are a boy or a young man on social media, even if you don't want to see this content, you're not interested in it, you downvote it, whatever, it still comes into your feed. And so we have a real challenge here when we're trying to navigate between freedom of expression and the ability to express our views and whether we can actually turn that off if we don't want to hear it. And the evidence shows us, and it's very, very clear, that especially if you are a young man or a boy, you can't turn it off. And that's a real problem.
Why can't there be good influences on there that are hitting feeds? Why don't the algorithms work for good influences?
Well, there certainly are good influences on there. And I mean, this isn't a problem of all boys or all masculinity or all men. We're definitely not saying that. And there are good influences on there. But it's a really complicated situation where we have private funding, we have private businesses trying to make money, and a social media company, their impetus is to make money. It's not necessarily to make sure that certain content is shown or that really even distributions of content are shown. And so if I'm a social media company and I can show misogynistic content that gets people watching it because they like it and gets people watching it because they hate it, well, that's double the eyeballs on that content, and it means more money for me as the platform. And so there's some real challenges here around the media ecosystem and who funds it and how we access it and all those things. There's really complicated, big questions.
All right. So where do you think this is going? Because to me, it seems like it's obviously heading in a bad direction. But what do you think is going to happen here? What can change this? What could reverse this course?
Well, I'm feeling a bit hopeful in the last couple of weeks, actually, because of the interest in this work and the other academic work that's coming out about this, highlighting that this is a problem in classrooms, and folks in the media like yourself are interested in talking about it and saying, well, what can we do about it? Because acknowledging that it's an issue is, of course, the first step there. I think that it is likely to get a little bit worse before it can get better because the academic research takes time and intervention measures take time. Changing, say, educational policy can take a really long time. But acknowledging it and moving forward has given me a little bit of hope over the last few weeks. But I do think, especially because even if we don't want to be, we're very influenced by our neighbors to the south, it's likely to get a little bit worse before it gets better. And so acknowledging that it's happening and making sure that teachers have support and educational systems have support to think about it and work against it is a really important next step.
Yeah, and it's just another reason why some people will get out of teaching or not get into teaching at all, right? That's the side effect that's sad about this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, Luc, very interesting chat. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Todd.
All right, take care. Luc Cousineau, researcher at Dalhousie University and director of the Canadian Institute for Far Right Studies. I can honestly say I went to school in the late 70s and the 80s and never once, look, I mean, I don't remember everything, but I never remember women, and I had a lot of great women teachers. My first teacher was a grade 1 teacher and many women teachers. I can never, ever remember anybody talking to any of them like that. I really can't. And it's just it's unbelievable that people act this way, and in particular, young men act this way. Anyway, what's on your mind today? Give us a call, 902-405-6000. We've got an open hour, 902-405-6000. One of the things that perhaps you might want to weigh in on, the fact that Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston was absent from the Pride Parade over the weekend, marking the second year in a row he missed the largest LGBTQ plus celebration in Atlantic Canada. In an email from his spokesperson, said that they were basically it was a scheduling snafu. They didn't schedule in time. What are your thoughts on that, folks? Do you think that that's a good excuse, or is that a lame excuse, or is it just that an excuse? Is there something more to this than we know? I personally don't buy that excuse. Look, if you don't want to be in the parade, I don't know, wear it perhaps. It's pretty evident if it were a priority that he would have been there. So what are your thoughts on this? Should the Premier of the province be at Pride Parade? Is it something that they should attend? And if they don't, then do they owe an explanation? What are your thoughts on this, folks? Perhaps you think that, look, he has every right not to attend. Okay, well, then say it. Don't hide behind a scheduling snafu. What are your thoughts on that, or anything else you got in your mind? 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. And, of course, the premiers are meeting the Prime Minister in a rich area of the luxurious Ontario wine country, cottage country. Is this a good use of taxpayers' dollars? Is this the right venue to talk about very serious things, or does the optics of this look bad? Is this a glorified vacation in a swanky area of Ontario and a waste of our money as taxpayers, because we're paying for all of this? 902-405-6000, that's the way to reach us. Your calls when we come back. All right, what is on your mind today? The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. The Premier of the province, Tim Houston, absent from Halifax's Pride Parade over the weekend. The second year in a row he missed the celebration, which is the largest in Atlantic Canada. Basically, through a spokesperson, the reason is they didn't register in time for a parade, for a float, rather. When asked if he tried to join another group's float to take part in the event, they did not respond to that question. So what's your response to this, folks? Do you have a response to this? Do you care? I guess perhaps somebody like they're saying, who cares if Tim Houston was in the Pride Parade or not? And I get it. Not everybody cares about it. But look, I think it's an important question because this is as mentioned, it's the biggest event in Atlantic Canada. Everybody else was there. From the municipality, other political parties, of course, other dignitaries said that they're going to attend the event. So is it kind of a passive-aggressive approach to not supporting the event when all is said and done? Is that what is the message loud and clear that the Premier does not support the event? And I think that's a fair and legitimate question, and perhaps not a fair assumption, but it's one that people are going to make, including me, that it's a possibility that he just doesn't want to be there. So, again, the question, and perhaps some of you think that that's great that he doesn't want to be there, but at least own it, at least wear it, right? The fact that they say it's a scheduling issue, to me, I don't buy that at all. I don't buy that. That's an excuse. If you don't like the event, if you don't want to be there, then own it. I can at least respect that. So what are your thoughts on this, folks? 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Here's an email from Mark, then I'll go to the phones. Mark says, I just got this email, so I haven't even read it yet, but I'll read it. It says, the Premier has every right not to attend the Pride Parade. We need to stop making a huge issue out of it. We voted Houston to manage this province, not criticize him for not going to events. Get over it. Everyone is sensitive these days. It's ridiculous. Okay, then if you don't want to go, say you don't want to go. That's my point, right? That's the point, Mark, is that pretending that it's a scheduling issue is weak, in my opinion. If you don't want to attend, say, I'm not attending. I choose not to. Don't lie to us and tell us it was a scheduling snafu. That is my main point here, folks. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Or that or whatever else you want to get into. Mike, go ahead.
Hey, bud.
Hi there.
Yeah, you don't know that he was lying. That's a bad assumption. You know what? The premier is hired for specific jobs, and going to parades isn't one of the specifics that our premier has to do. I've never been there. I've never taken my children there. I mean,
I have not either, Mike. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I've never attended it. But my point. Listen, you say that you say give him a pass, and that it's not an excuse, and then you applaud the fact that and you say you shouldn't have gone. So I mean, which one is it? Like that? That's what I'm saying. If he doesn't want to go, then tell us. I choose not to go. That's all I'm saying. Do you really buy this?
And then they'll be asking him why.
Oh, okay, then. So if you don't want to go, then wear it.
It's always going to come back to the assumption that he's homophobic. Let's face it, that's what it's going to come back to.
Well, what it comes back to me is, Mike, is that he doesn't want to attend, and I don't know why he doesn't want to attend. But
it doesn't matter.
Yes,
it's his choice.
Well, then say that.
Like it's yours and mine.
Then say that. Say, I choose not to go. Don't tell me it's a scheduling issue.
Yeah. What's the parade? I mean, what's it about? What's it represent?
Doesn't matter what it's about. It's the excuse is that's my issue. Wear it.
Well,
say you don't want to go.
I wonder why it exists.
Well, there you go. So
I have friends that are married couples that don't believe in it at all.
Okay.
And I'm talking about gay couples, and they just think it's ridiculous. It's a silly exhibition. But anyway, I want to get on to the premier as well. I'm very proud of Tim Houston for stepping up, and that's what I want to see him do. I don't think he's on a power trip about going up against the city. These councillors, for the last, all through Mike Savage's term, this whole bike lanes crap, it's their agenda. You get a lot of negativity about all this bicycle lanes. I'm watching projects all over. The roads are a mess, and they're more worried about spending tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to turn this into a bicycle city. I'm proud of the guy. I think he's doing a great job. And
well, Mike, let me ask you this, okay?
Yeah.
Let's say that the premier was getting involved in a decision that the city was decided on, councils that you liked, that you supported, and the premier was stepping in and reversing it. You probably have a different opinion.
I guess my point would be is that I think that's a position or I'm trying to think of the right word, Todd, but I think it's part of his job. I think that as the representative of Nova Scotia, if he sees wrongs, then I've got to look at what he sees and why he's seeing it. And yeah, there might be the odd time where I go, oh, I'm not particularly crazy about that one, but that's kind of his job, right? And like we've always said, Todd, one of the big things with politics is you ain't in there to be loved. and there's decisions that have to be made that, 50% are going to hate, 50% are going to love. So it's kind of the tough spot of the job. But anyway, Mike, thanks for the time.
Appreciate the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. Dave, hello.
Yes, good morning, Todd. Thank you for taking my call, sir.
Sure.
Just Tim Houston on the parade business. I think it's just dirty laundry in my opinion. That's my opinion, Todd. I don't care myself. Hopefully he's working hard at other projects that are far more important than going to a parade. And maybe he's at the summit or wherever they are in beautiful cottage country right now with the rest of the premiers and our elbows up prime minister in a luxury place, no doubt. And I got to tell you, Doug Ford, if he threatens the U.S. to shut down their power, that's almost a declaration that it'll give Trump all the reason in the world to combat us and hit us real hard. I think folks got to realize, Todd, we get our natural gas, every ounce of it that powers up Tufts Cove, from the United States. So you don't think he'd retaliate big time? I'm embarrassed to be a Canadian. You know, you have people putting back blueberries and strawberries because it says, you know, in USA, and yet they're on Netflix, they're on Amazon, they're on Disney Plus, all these big U.S. companies, and they're lining up at Starbucks. Tim Hortons is an American company owned. And I'm embarrassed, to be honest with you, about our Canadian folks. I understand we are in a dilemma, but we got the wrong guy in there. And I'm going to be honest with you, Todd. Can I say something here? I think Trump wanted Mark Carney in. I honestly think, I'm not trying to create conspiracy, he guided him in there. Trump is one step ahead of everybody else. And you don't think he's watching our premiers up there at Cottage Country, tiddling around, trying to come up with solutions? Yeah, we need to move our oil and our natural resources from Alberta. We should have been doing that 10 years ago, Todd. And I don't know if anybody knows how long it takes to build a refinery or a pipeline. I'll be dead by the time we get a pipeline to the East Coast if we can get it through Quebec at all. Yeah. So come on, folks. Elbows up. It ain't happening. And we voted that man in. That's all I have to say, Todd.
Okay, Dave. All right.
Cheers.
Thanks for the call. 902-405-6000. Look, I think it's complete bravado, Doug Ford's out cutting power off to the United States. So that'll never, ever, ever happen, in my opinion. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, continuing with your calls. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Bob's giving us a call. Hello, Bob. Hi, Bob. Bob, are you there?
Hello.
Hi, go ahead.
Yes, I just want to say about Tim Houston.
Yeah.
Not going to that parade. Mm-hmm. I think that man has a lot of better things to do than go to a parade. He's a busy man, right?
Well, he was at events, from what I've been told, and what we're getting calls, other events in on the weekend that were not that I can't remember what it was now. Was it, Vanessa? What was it? The IWK or something? Some event in an IWK 250 event somewhere else on Saturday. That's what we're told. So there you go.
Okay, but I mean that's fair. But really. If you were 25, 30 years ago, that was a big issue about being gay or being bi or whatever. But nowadays, it's whatever it is. Nobody really, I shouldn't say care, but nobody really, it's not a big issue like it was way back then.
Well, it's easier for you to say, Bob, because you don't have the lived experience that the people do that live it.
Well, I've got lots of, my brother, he was the first one that was ever with AIDS, or one of the first, and AIDS was a big thing back then. Now AIDS is like COPD, basically. Nobody, it's not an issue like it was. And same with, I don't care who you are, as long as you're a good person. I don't care if you're gay, black, white, pink, or purple, right?
Right. Okay, thanks for the call. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, it's easy for somebody outside and looking in to say it's not an issue anymore. Look, and it's not even about the why the parade is. I'm not getting into that, why it's needed or is it still needed or any of that stuff. Although I believe that it is. Look, but it's about not attending and not owning it. That's what it's about. That, to me, is what it's about. It's this passive-aggressive attitude. 902-405-6000, that's the way to reach us. Hi, Bill. What's on your mind today?
Well, I'm bothered by the way our government is going to continue to spend money on things we don't need. I mean, we're talking like $500 million, like $500 million on these planes that's down there in the States they're going to be building, not even just early in the game, but down the line. I mean, today, if anybody's looking at the wars that's going on over there in the Ukraine and so on, I mean, planes and tanks, this type of, even ships, they're pretty well obsolete. It's drones. If they want to spend money, first of all, I think it's time they got out of NATO and then mind their own business. I don't know what they're doing over there to begin with, but the point of it is what I'm driving at. We got a lot more things we can spend that kind of money on, homelessness and rental and so on, much, much more. What do you think? Now, I'm not finished, by the way. I'm not finished. Yeah. But anyway, what do you think of that one?
Well, yeah, I think that modern warfare has changed, and drones have definitely changed it for sure. I would agree with that. I think that's a valid statement, Bill.
And Ford's saying Ford's getting in there, going on the way he's doing there. That's dangerous stuff. You're not going to get the best of Trump very easily. Just saying you're going to cut off power or so on. And here's another one for you, Musk. Somebody told me that last night I was talking to a fellow. He said that Trump's thinking about deporting Musk. Have you heard that one?
Well, it wouldn't surprise me. He's from South Africa, so that wouldn't surprise me, Bill.
You know, the other thing that means is in the game here is the Pride Parade. I think the problem you got, no matter any official, if you don't go to one and you start going to others, you know, it's a question of how many, should we go with one or just a bunch of them or just, that's a toughie, that one there.
Yeah.
So that's sure. My little piece there today.
Okay, bud. Thanks for the call, Bill.
Appreciate it.
All right,
Thanks,
take care.
Al.
All right, 902-405-6000. Donna's giving us a call. Hello, Donna.
Oh, hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I totally agree with this swanky, expensive place where all these politicians went. It's costing taxpayers, both provincial and federal, even our province, millions to get them there and to pay for their food and accommodation and security. I watched it on TV last night. I was talking to my sisters. We discuss politics every day. And this is something that we all said it was ridiculous. And why don't they do Zoom or whatever, set an example, stay home, and save some money. Because, every province is, and even the federal, are struggling for money and whatnot. That's my opinion on that. I think it's a waste of money, them going. It's just a nice vacation that they're having. And they can do it from home. Now with the way that computers and stuff work now, you can do everything from home and save your taxpayers money. Now, the other thing about Houston, about not going to the Pride Parade, he traveled, I'll defend him a bit, he was up in Ontario on Sunday, and so probably he wouldn't have had time to go from Pictou to here and go in the parade and then getting things ready to go away. I mean, it's up to him if he wants to go or doesn't want to go. But that's my take on those things.
Well, yeah. Look, I think that when it comes to meetings in general, the thought was that after the pandemic that there would be more continued virtual meetings because that's how people met them. That was considered to be the kind of a good alternative because it cuts down on fossil fuels and all that stuff. But you know what? It's like anything; they can't resist the photo ops and they can't resist the temptation of the travel. And a lot of politicians love the travel. Carney's always going to summits in Europe and all over the world, and Trudeau did the same thing. And conservative prime ministers have done the same thing. They love the lifestyle of the travel and the optics of it. They're hooked on that, Donna.
But like I said, they should be setting an example and staying home and saving the taxpayers' money. I mean, look at the people going to food bank, people that need housing and all kinds of other things. The millions that they're spending could go in that. And it's not just, say, the premiers from the province. They're bringing 3 or 4 or how many of their employees.
No, for sure,
with
that's
them.
right. Their staff, yep, they bring
Their
staff with them.
That's it.
Yeah.
And it's funny. We were talking, like I said, my sisters and I were talking about that very same thing. What a waste of time and money. Anyway, that's my two things for the day.
Okay, Don, appreciate the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. Folks, what is on your mind today? Again, 902-405-6000. I guess a couple of issues, 3 issues. First of all, is the Premier not attending the Pride Parade for the second year in a row in Halifax? And my key issue is the excuse that they gave, that it was a scheduling snafu. They didn't register in time. I personally don't believe that. I think that's an excuse. And if you're not going to go, then say you're not going to go. Because for whatever reason, just say we've decided. You don't even have to give a reason. Just say we have decided not to attend. Period. Now it would be nice to hear a reason why, but I think that I could live with that. But to say that we just couldn't make it because we didn't register in time, to me that's weak. So what are your thoughts on that? And perhaps you think that the Premier should be there or shouldn't, or he has every right not to be there. And I would support the fact that if you're saying that he has no obligation to be there, okay, but at least again wear it and own it. That's my primary argument here, folks. What are your thoughts on that? And of course, their premiers are meeting at this luxurious event in Ontario's cottage country, one of the most luxurious parts of the country. What about the optics of that, folks? Is that something that looks bad at a time when so many people are struggling and you're talking about tariffs and the demise of the economy potentially? Is the backdrop of this location bad? And is there anything that comes out of these meetings substantive anyway? Or are they just basically a glorified vacation in the middle of the summer? 902-405-6000, that's the way to reach us. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, continuing with your calls. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. David's giving us a call. Hello, David.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, you?
Not too bad. Just listening to some of the comments. As far as the Premier going against and giving the option to take it back by August 9th or 2nd regarding Moore Street, I think there's overall support for that. Obviously, on your radio station, listening to your show and watching the news, the public is very supportive. You raised the question about, well, what if another decision come up that you were against? Well, if it does, it does. This is the first one I recall that this ever happened to.
Well, this is the first time that in a long time anyway that a government's had a super majority, a 2/3 majority, which I think has empowered Tim Houston to make this type of move.
Yeah, and so that's a super majority that, like I said in your show previous, that Nova Scotia supported. So you have to live with that. He's heavily supported. He's heavily supported and backed. And it's obvious listening to your show and looking at the surveys and on social media how many people agree with him. So, if you agree or you disagree, maybe down the road, something that you disagree on another decision he makes, so be it. But he's in power and he's in that position to do that. And I think, to come up with comments about, well, what if down the road something you don't agree with, that he makes a second decision, then so be it. That's 4 years. That's democracy. That's what we voted for. That's why you always say get out and vote, do you not? So obviously, he was heavily supported. In the second item I have is the Pride Parade. Mm-hmm. Let's switch that around, Todd, and let's say put you on the hot seat here. Mm-hmm. What if Rogers wanted to put a float in the Pride Parade, 95.7, sorry, or just a talk radio float or just a Rogers float, and asked you and a couple other colleagues to go, and you didn't want to? What would you say?
Well, I wouldn't. I wouldn't make up an excuse and say I didn't register in time.
No, okay, so I'll give you that one.
Yeah.
But
that's all my point. That's all my point is, David, is that wear it. Just at least wear it. If you don't want to go, wear it.
I agree with that. But do you think, and I don't know if this is maybe a part of it, but do you think that people have to come up with excuses like that because they're afraid to just say, I don't believe in it?
Well, you just said, David, you just said that he's got all the support in the world, and he does. He appears to have a lot of very popular, and so therefore, if that's the case, then people would be able to get behind him if he said, look, I'm just not attending. And I'm not going to give a reason why. I just choose not to. I think that would be more palatable than it was a scheduling snafu in my humble opinion.
But it still wouldn't be put to bed, Todd. It would still be talked about on your show.
Well, sure, but when you're the premier of the province, David, that's the job. You're going to be analyzed and scrutinized for decisions like that. That comes with the territory.
But I agree to disagree here because. Yes, premier, but what about a talk show host or the average citizen who doesn't want to go?
Well,
It seems like when you disagree, it seems like when you disagree with the Pride Parade or you disagree with what's going on there, you're labeled as a bigot. You're labeled as how dare you? Like it doesn't matter what position you hold, from a premier to a talk show host to a normal citizen. Yeah. And then when you decide to make the decision that you're not going to participate or you don't believe in it, or some of your callers that call in here listened to it this morning, a couple callers didn't believe in it, whatever. It seems like that you're painted with the brush that how dare you?
Well,
you really are.
David, listen, I take your point, and labeling is something that we do easily, and that's not my intention here to label. I personally, I've had conversations with Tim Houston. I have. My instincts of the guy is that he's not a homophobe at all. My instinct is that he doesn't want to deal with the issue at all because because there are rural parts of this province that are still not supportive of this type of thing, and a broad base of his support probably applauds him not going if we were having a grown-up conversation about this. So I think that the way that he deals with it is not personal, it's political, and I think that strategically he figures I'll just not go, and I'll save the scheduling snafu and just wait till people stop talking about it, and then it'll go away. That's my honest opinion. I don't think Tim Houston's a homophobe. No, I don't at all. I really honestly don't.
And I'll give you that in our communications in the past, and I'll give you this one. And I agree to disagree. I agree with you with that, Todd. I totally agree with you. That should have been handled another way, and explanation, no problem. But on the other side of the fence, there has to be some way. And you said the general public in Nova Scotia, the rural areas, or whatever, that do not agree.
Yeah.
That. Doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be you're on the defensive all the time. It doesn't have to be you need an excuse or you need this or that. That doesn't have to be that.
Yeah.
You could let's put it this way: agree to disagree without having a conversation of why.
Yeah, I suppose, David. But again, look, when you're the premier and there's an event of this importance to a lot of people. You're going to have to own it, and you're going to have to, and people are going to want an explanation. I think that comes with the territory. So, but I take your point, David, and I take your point. And labeling people is not cool, and that is not what I'm trying. That's not what I'm doing here. I, for the record, don't think that Tim Houston is a homophobe at all. I really don't. I think it's more strategic and more political than anything else.
And listen, we'll agree to disagree. I agree with you on that comment.
Okay.
I just like from my side of the fence is that if I don't agree with something, if I don't agree with
I agree. That's fair.
I should be just left alone to feel that way.
Well, you should be, but again, when you're the premier, that's a different story. That's what,
true. I'll give you that.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Bell. Take care. All right. 902-405-6000. Shelley, hello.
Yes. How are you?
I'm well. You?
I personally think you're going a little hard on the premier. This is my reason. You keep saying he hasn't given a reason. It was scheduling. Well, think about this. Prior to him getting that invitation to perform, he probably had a dozen events planned. So he had a scheduled plan before he even got the invitation. So it is a scheduling problem. Think about that.
I don't believe it. I don't buy it.
Well, you don't. Okay, that's your opinion. You don't believe it.
That's right. It is my opinion.
Okay, well, if it's your opinion, don't keep saying that it was his scheduling problem. It's not, because it was a scheduling problem.
Shelley, if it were important to him, he would be there. He's the guy in charge of his scheduling of his. But
how do you know that the events that he had scheduled prior to him getting the invitation was far more important to the economy than the Pride Parade?
It's not about the economy, is it? Why is it about the economy?
Well, no, the events that he had scheduled prior to him getting the invitation to attend. He had 12 events planned, so it is a scheduling problem.
Okay, we'll agree to disagree. Thanks for the call.
Okay.
Take care. 902-405-6000. Again, folks, I'm not labeling anybody anything at all, and I don't know Tim Houston that well. I've had conversations with him. He's been here in studio. He's cordial. He's a nice guy, and I don't think he's. I just think this is his way of not dealing with it. Quite honestly. And I'll bet you that's exactly what's going on. This is his way of not dealing with it because he doesn't want to hear it from people, some people in his base who don't support it. That's my take. David, hello.
Good morning, Todd.
Hi.
Another good topic you got there this morning.
Thank you.
Would this be considered a scandal?
No, not at all. Not a scandal at all.
I didn't think so. No. But I think what he should do is contact the Pride community and apologize.
Okay, all right, that's fair.
I think so, and because this is like when the Prime Minister, when Trudeau was in, that he was supposed to go to that treaty out in B.C. and he was up in his vacation home.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, he should have at least apologized. He's got a lot of fan base out there, and I think he should do that.
Okay. Thanks, David. Appreciate the call, bud.
Bye-bye.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. TJ's giving us a call. Hello, TJ.
Hey, Todd. How are you?
I'm well, you?
Good. I just wanted to, I don't know if you're aware of it. You might have read the news story this morning, but there is a religious singer coming up from the States.
Yeah, I saw that.
Sean Wicker. On Booch or whatever his name is. I don't know what the hell it is. But anyways, this guy is a real, I guess for lack of a better word, a whack job. I mean, he's raising money left, right, and center. He's buying himself big homes in California, Montana, and yet he's up here with his hand put to, I guess it's a youth group that hired him. I'm not sure. Regardless of the fact, everybody's entitled to their own opinion and what they want to do, but he's having a concert at York Redoubt National Historic Park.
Mm-hmm.
Parks Canada is letting this guy in there. Does that make any sense to you at all?
Yeah, I saw the story, TJ, and Shannon Meadma, the MP, is speaking out against it, and we sent an invitation to her to join the show. I think that there's, look, my instinct is that I share your perspective. It's a national park where he's performing. And we know that this country is under attack financially from this government and the MAGA movement, and there are other things about the MAGA movement which are distasteful to some. So I understand your reaction to it, and I share your reaction to it. But that said, you get into freedom of speech and freedom of expression and other issues as well, which kind of are involved in this also, which are nuances of the conversation. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know what there's. I think there's going to be some civil disobedience from the neighborhood in the park, but let's not go there. Anyways, yeah, I think we're all going to be expressing ourselves while he's out there with his freedom of expression, and I don't know. I would welcome anybody who knows this guy to come down and support the other side instead of supporting him, because we just think it's crazy that he's going to be at Parks Canada. The other thing is we just don't understand how Parks Canada approved it. We just don't get it.
Yeah, it's a legit question, TJ. And again, I've reached out to Shannon Meadma, the MP, to get her perspective on this. So thanks for bringing it up because it's an important story.
Okay.
All right, take care. All right, 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, continuing with your calls, 902-405-6000. Craig's a first-time caller, so Craig, I wanted to get you right on. Go ahead.
Hey there. First-time caller, just driving around and heard you mention about the Sean Fuchs thing and how you took the approach that it is freedom of speech. And I agree with that up to a certain point, but my problem with him specifically is that his approach is what is called Christian dominionism, and it's the use of free speech or whatever else you would say to repress others' rights where they do not agree with his own. He is also up for $25 million of fraud from his own church as of last month. He is pro-MAGA and very anti, I will say, the typical Nova Scotian sentiment. And that kind of triggered me to call in, because I think that this goes past free speech. Anyone can have an opinion. His is too far unaligned.
Yeah, and the other component to it, of course, is it's at a national park.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
I have contacted, like you mentioned, Miedema and some others, my local counselor. I even put Tim Houston on the email that I sent. I'm 100% for free speech. I have no problem with any of those things. I fear that this moves into fear-mongering, stirring up things, and I can't help but notice that, again, he's up for $25 million of fraud. How much of our money is going to directly to his own personal lawsuits and other things? Like, it doesn't feel above bar for me.
And imagine if when he tried to cross the border here, if he would have got the same reception that a lot of people who are outspoken going to the United States have gotten, and some people have been detained and everything else. Imagine if that happened, what the outrage would be in the United States.
100%. Like, if he's pro-Trump and all those things, like he's an outspoken MAGA supporter, he's pro-annexation, therefore, by default.
Yeah, you imagine when he arrived at the border, you imagine if him and his crew arrived at the border, if they were detained and harassed and phones gone through and all that, the outcry that would have happened?
100%. And there are currently, I think the last time I had heard a number, there are 55 Canadians detained in the U.S., right, for various reasons. Like, that's highly concerning to me. And, like, again, I do just want to make it clear, like, I'm all for free speech. I have no problems with any of those things. I think this goes beyond that into an area that is here to just stir up trouble or stir up fear within our local area. That why would anyone with the approach of, again, it's called Christian dominionism, want or should be invited here?
Okay.
It's highly concerning.
All right, Craig, appreciate the call. Take care. 902-456-6000. Dan, hello.
Hey, Todd, how are you? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I got you.
Great. First-time caller, love the show.
Great, thank you.
I really I do agree with you a lot of time, but this Houston one, not quite with you on this one. It's got nothing to do with the LG community at all. It's that right now we've got so many problems politically that we've got to address. To me, this, our premier attending any parade right now, regardless of what it is, got nothing against the community. I'm not a parade guy. I never go to parades. But to me, that, like, his attendance, leader of our province or not, to me, is just such a low priority right now. I just don't.
Hey, Dan, you still there? He's still there? Okay, Dan, listen, what about the fact that he attended other events on the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever he can schedule and when he can, right? But if he's got more pressing matters, then...
But Dan, I guess all I'm saying is that he attended other events on the weekend, on that same day. So he could have been at the Pride Parade. So I guess that's my point is that... Don't pretend it was a scheduling issue. It was a decision not to attend, and to say that, well, he's got more pressing things to do. Well, he was at other events on the weekend, which you could have said the exact same thing about, right?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, in that one respect, that perhaps he could have just said, I'm just not going to attend.
Yeah. Just say it. Just say I choose not to attend.
Yeah. I mean. I've never ever heard the man ever say anything negative or unsupportive.
No, absolutely, and I'm certainly not framing him as a homophobe at all. To the contrary, I don't think that he is in the least. So that I'm not trying to label him at all.
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
Okay, anyway, Dan. Appreciate it, pal.
This world needs to chill out. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care. 902-405-6000. Brenda's giving us a call. Hello, Brenda.
Hi, Todd. I've been waiting a long time to comment about this Pride Parade situation.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, I agree with you 1,000%. I think that if Tim Houston didn't want to go, he just had to kind of man up and say, you know what, I don't want to go for whatever reason, or I can't attend for whatever reason. And that would have been the end of. But you know what? I'm hearing a lot of comments today. I'm a gay woman in a gay marriage. And I'll tell you, a lot of parades for a lot of people have a great significance. And personally, I don't attend the Pride parades. I haven't for years, not for any particular reason. I just don't go. Yeah. But I'll tell you, as a gay woman, this is the one time of year that people can go and be exactly who they want to be, not to be ridiculed or criticized or bullied or whatever. And I hear people on your show today saying, you know, like, it's accepted. Like, this isn't what it used to be years ago. Well, I'm going to tell you from someone who knows firsthand that things have not changed a whole lot in years. So, and I don't want to get into a whole lot of that, but I agree with you. I think Tim Houston, if he couldn't go, that's fine. Whatever his views are, that's fine. Everyone's entitled to their views. But as a premier of this province, he has a responsibility to be open and to let people know why he didn't go. And I guess that's just my 2 cents. I've been listening to the callers, and I've been just kind of getting angry thinking, you know, there's a lot of people that are calling in that aren't part of the community. But I want you to hear from someone that is part of the community that thinks that the Pride Parade is very important for us. And it's not about a parade at the end of the day, Todd. It's about a community. And as a premier of our province, he has a responsibility to support that community. And I guess that's all I want to say. And I do agree with you, and I'm glad that you brought this forward. And I hope that he does come on in the next number of days and actually comment about why he didn't go to the Pride Parade.
Okay, Brenda, thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Sandra, hello.
Oh, good morning, Todd. Everybody, I think, is calling in today and disagreeing with you, which is fine. And I also disagree with your comments. I don't support the conservative government, but, you know, this is the third parade here in the city this year. I don't know. Did he attend the others? And then I was thinking, well, you know, it's summertime. People are on vacation. You know, what if you just happen to have friends or family visiting this weekend from afar and just could not spend the few hours it would have taken him to attend the parade? And like I say, you know, maybe he had a picnic or a dinner prearranged. This is, you know, in his personal life. So I think that, you know, in that case, you know.
Well, that's Sandra. That's not what they said, though. That's not what they said. They said that they couldn't. They registered too late and they didn't register in time. That's what his spokesperson says.
Mm-hmm. So, well, you know, could have been. He could have. You know, plans are made far in advance, right? I'm just saying. We don't know why exactly he didn't attend, but and I do agree that, you know, you have to be forthright and honest. But again, at the same time, you know, he does have a personal life. That's all.
Okay, thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
Other than that, I love your show, and everything's great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Listen, I don't mind the fact that most people disagree with me today. That's fine. That's good. The fact that people took the time to call is what matters to me. And I appreciate people doing that. I didn't get to all there for that. I apologize. We'll open the phone lines again tomorrow between noon and 1 on Wednesday. Remember, it's Dr. Gillis and house calls tomorrow between 11 and 12. And speaking of calls, if you'd like to chat with Dr. Rob Thacker, the Science Files, give us a buzz at 902-405-6000. The Science Files when we come back. All right, time for the Science Files with Dr. Rob Thacker from St. Mary's University, astrophysicist. If you'd like to chat with Rob, give us a call at 902-405-6000. That is the way to do it. Again, 902-405-6000. That's the way to chat with Rob, 902-405-6000. Rob Thacker, welcome back as always.
Oh, it's a pleasure as always. We're into the sort of like vacation time of summer. I noticed pulling into the car park, it was only like half full.
Yeah. The traffic is very light, which is good. That's one advantage, right?
Well, especially when there's a lot of construction on Roby.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
So if there was a reasonable amount of traffic, Roby wouldn't be moving either way.
Yeah, for sure. 902-405-6000. Again, that's the way to reach us for the Science Files. And we've kind of been doing a soft kind of survey over the past number of weeks, and based on how nice the weather is, well, is that a factor in how many calls we get,
Forming a hypothesis. That's right.
And the hypothesis is that it might be a factor.
So the hypothesis is, and I think we've established this fairly strongly, is that if it's a sunny day, people tend to be busy out doing things, not listening to the radio as much, so we get fewer calls.
That's right. Well, let's see if we can reverse that trend today. How's that sound?
Anyone calling?
All right, folks. That's all right. Give us a call at 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. It's interesting, though, in that the way that we view the world and the perceptions that we have of the world and the opinions that we form kind of independently of not anything real empirical but anecdotally is pretty powerful stuff, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, just a little bit. I mean, this to a large extent, if we extend it to people interpreting the world through the lens of their psyche and all of their experiences, then that's one of the single biggest biases that humans have, right? And I mean, we tend to... I mean, there's a whole bunch of different biases, but confirmation bias, where you have a particular opinion that you've built up over a number of years, and then you respond to things on whether they fit with that bias or not, that's a massive issue for us as human beings. And it's very difficult to shake off, right? Because your natural tendency when you see something that agrees with your particular worldview is to be less questioning of it. And then when you see something that doesn't fit with your worldview, if you're an intelligent individual, you'll come up with all sorts of reasons to sort of like question it and so on. And some of those may not necessarily be actually plausible or reasonable, right? So that is an enormous bias, and it's one of the hardest things for anyone to shake, right? Because we do want to put things into categories that we agree with, and it's not always, well, it's not always. It's generally speaking, unfortunately, it's not a good thing because you will tend to what's called cherry pick, right? You'll pick the information that fits with your particular worldview, and then the stuff that doesn't, you'll tend to sort of like push off to the side. Now, everyone, there are a lot of very smart people that I work with who will turn around and say, well, everything's subjective. Right. Well, it depends, right? Because there are certain situations where objectively you know what happened, right? Because someone went to a door and knocked on it. That actually that event happened. So objectively, there is a truth behind that. So, but when it comes to arguing about things like particular politics, et cetera, then we do get into situations where there is an element of subjectivity and an element of argument and personal life experience coming in. So that's a little bit more difficult. But in general, when you're presented with evidence, one of the best things you can do is to try and question your biases. In fact, I'm going to be teaching something about this in the fall, probably.
And of course, you mix that in with when people now go online to find supposedly empirical data to back them up, and we don't know how that data was mined and what the motivation is behind the credibility of the organization that gets that info. That is a dangerous combination, right?
Oh, that literally is a combination that has the potential to undermine society as a whole. That's right. Seriously. Yeah. So one of the concerns that we have in today's day and age, and everyone has heard about this, we talked about this since social media really started, this concept of bubbles, that people live in their own bubbles, pulling in their own particular feeds that will give them the news the way they want presented. And funnily enough, I'm quite strongly against that, because as much as I may disagree with certain people, at the end of the day, you have to listen to what they're saying, right? And so even if you disagree with it, you still have to listen to these things. So that when you have a situation where you then have particular interest groups that go off and do things to try and essentially come to a conclusion, that's deeply problematic. And from a scientific perspective, that is exactly what you're not supposed to do as a scientist.
For sure.
So as a scientist, you're meant to form a hypothesis, do the experiment, see what the evidence says, and then do you have confirmation or do you have negation? Yeah,
kind of when you're describing that, I was thinking kind of the way the law should be blind and interpreted in that way without prejudice.
Law is very tricky.
Yeah.
Right? It really
but I guess
is.
the basic fundamental principle of it.
You look at standards of proof in certain circumstances, like eyewitness testimony, and it's just any psychologist would tell you it's not very reliable.
Yeah.
Right, and then you have a situation in which if you have trial by jury, you've got influence of the jury and things like that. So, it's that's I'm not even going to touch that one. It's so complicated and difficult. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. 902-405-6000. Stephen's giving us a call. Hello, Stephen. Hey, Stephen, are you there?
Actually, I had a great question, a couple of questions for Rob, given that he's an astrophysicist. Does he prefer wet etching or dry etching or doping on CPU creation in silicon CPUs? No, I'm joking. That's way outside of your scope. Two things. I saw a news story on CBC today about they think they've captured a planet forming around a host star.
Mm-hmm.
Something they say never has been seen before. So like to get your thoughts on that. The other one is two massive black holes collided or merged into another. My question is why, and supposedly it's like 240 times the size of our sun. Why wouldn't one gobble the other one up?
Okay. Do you want to start with that one, and I'll come back to the planets?
Oh, absolutely. I'm fascinated.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent,
confuse me.
To a certain extent, you're right. I mean, they're gobbling each other up, as it were. So, as the systems are coming together, there will be this in-spiral process that leads to what we call the chirp that we'll have detected. And so, with LIGO, the gravitational wave detector. And so this is a very violent thing that happens with the release of enormous amounts of energy. I think we need to get that in perspective, right? This is nothing that we can really get our heads around in a common sense kind of way. You've literally got things that are spiraling together at high fractions of the speed of light. These things will be kilometers across. And they're literally in-spiraling, and the last bit as they come in together happens in a fraction of a second. And on top of that, there's what we call mass loss during the merger event, with all of that mass being released in gravitational radiation as well. So it is a phenomenal thing that happens when two black holes merge, and it's an immense amount of energy that's released as well, that literally warps space and time.
Does it happen a lot?
Yeah, it does.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so this is the thing, right? When I say it happens a lot in the entire universe.
Well, yeah, okay.
Right. So when we get down to does it happen locally very much, and the answer to that is probably a bit less. But we've certainly detected collisions of black holes in galaxies that are cosmologically speaking fairly nearby, right?
Okay. Now, will ultimately they cancel each other out, or will one survive?
So literally, the merger product is the survivor of the two, right? It's going to be it's actually going to be a little bit less massive than both of them combined because there will be mass loss during the collision itself, right? But it's taking material from both of them and forming a new and bigger black hole.
Oh, wow.
And it's going to have more spin as well than the ones that came in with as well.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
No, thank you for that. I just thought one would gobble the other one up and then they'd mutually annihilate each other.
Yeah, no, it's a really it's kind of funny because we think this is going to be kind of benign, sort of like chomping on something and it's gone, but it's not. It's a very, very violent merger process, right? It's the speeds involved and the energies involved are like nothing that we understand in the terms of like everything around us on a day-to-day basis. It's just phenomenal. And so for the planets, I'm a little bit, how can I put it? I think the way this has been phrased is a little bit unfair. I mean, there's a number of situations where we can point to planetary systems where there are obviously planets in the process of forming. I think that's pretty clear. The thing that's different about this is I think they're arguing that because we actually have a really bright spot, that's the particular dust cloud associated with the potential planet. And, sure. I mean, we've detected plenty of planets with associated dust clouds before. Let me be honest, it's a neat thing because this system is very, very beautiful. If you look at it from the earlier images of it, it's a lovely two-arm spiral system. And then there was a picture of that from, I think, 2015, 2016, something like that. And so now they've gone in and they've done a higher resolution and they've been able to pick out where they think the planet is. So that's kind of cool. It's not mind-blowing. We have the first images we got with the ALMA telescope a few years ago, which actually shows these beautiful rings that have been carved out of the dust clouds around the stars. That was just mind-blowing when we saw those for the first time. This is kind of, it's cool, but it's not as much of a revelation as those were a few years ago.
So not front page CBC News.
I mean, it's fine. It's fine for CBC to cover this, but would it be front page of the New York Times? No.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't read the New York Times because they're behind a paywall.
Okay, sure.
Okay, Stephen, appreciate the call.
No, really appreciate that. That's thank you very much for the explanation. The black hole one really confused the heck out of me, but thank you very much.
Okay, take care. 902-405-6000. Science Files continues when we come back. All right, Science Files continues with Dr. Rob Thacker. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Peter's giving us a buzz. Hello, Peter.
Hi, how are you guys today?
We're well.
Good, thanks.
Awesome. Actually, part of my question is ties in with what Steve mentioned.
Sure.
I was watching one of the NOVA programs, and they were talking how you can have a particle react to its other half, and it can be anywhere around the universe.
Oh, you're talking about quantum entanglement.
Right on. Okay.
Yeah.
So they mentioned that sometimes the particle that may be at the event horizon of a black hole is given off, I believe they said X-ray energy. Is that correct? It escapes
it could
from
be.
there?
Yeah, it could be. Yep.
Okay. Now, my question is, I thought nothing could escape a black hole.
All right.
Or is this because it hasn't actually gotten into the black hole?
No. Okay. You are actually talking about something called Hawking radiation. Okay.
Yes.
And
I remember that Stephen's name was involved.
Exactly. So that is a situation where around any massive object, you're going to have a situation where what we call virtual pairs are being created. And so there's pairs of particles and their antiparticles that are constantly blipping in and out of existence. And so the nature of the combination of that quantum mechanical process combined with general relativity is that when you look at the two of those things together and do all the mathematics, there is a probability that what will in fact happen is one of those pairs will be absorbed into the black hole and the other one will, as you said, radiate away. And that radiating away is the origin of Hawking radiation. And that is actually how energy gets out of black holes. And so they can go through what's called a quantum mechanical evaporation process. But it only really happens effectively for very small black holes. For very, very big ones, it's kind of irrelevant.
So is this, when they do say that nothing can escape from a black hole, where does that tie in? Because you're saying it can leave.
Yeah. So it's reasonable to sort of think that's a misnomer. But so the idea that nothing can escape is essentially a classical idea, right?
Yes.
And so when you throw the quantum mechanics in there, then you realize actually that's not entirely true in the sense that some elements of energy of the black hole can escape through Hawking radiation.
Okay.
Right. But it doesn't. This is the thing I try and get people to realize. If we take a black hole the size of the sun, right, or the same mass of the sun, the level of Hawking radiation from that is absolutely minuscule and irrelevant compared to the rate at which it would be absorbing other material from an accretion disk. Right. So where Hawking radiation is really important is for mini black holes, very small ones.
Okay. Yeah. Right on. Okay, thanks very much. Sure. And both of you have a grand day.
Thanks a lot. Take care. 902-405-6000. Alexander, hello.
Hi, good afternoon, Todd and Dr. Thacker.
Hi there, Alex.
2 questions today. One, I was reading about launching satellites with a centrifuge, a large centrifuge. Do you know anything about that, and has it been tried?
So that's spin launch, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so It kind of works. I'm not convinced there's really a big market for it, but we can talk about it a bit more if you want.
No, I was just curious on whether they actually tried it.
Yeah,
or is it just a theory?
So spin launch is a serious thing, right? So it's literally the idea that you put something in a centrifuge, you spin it up, and then you let it go. Right, and so with spin launch, the challenge is, A, you have to protect all of the electronics against all of the G-forces associated with that. That can be done, right? People need to know that they were experimenting in the 1970s with high-altitude projectile launchers, and they figured out a way of basically encasing the electronics. I think it was something like epoxy or something like that to protect them from the G-forces. So that can be done. But then the challenge with spin launch is getting this all to work, firing a projectile up there with enough propellant for it to get into an orbital trajectory. And I think that's quite a bit harder. So all of that said, I followed up on spin launch probably about 2 or 3 years ago. I haven't looked to see where they are now, right? But I was always just a little bit skeptical of it.
Okay. Second question, totally sort of different field, but for decades, naval ships have had nuclear reactors,
Yeah.
They've been using nuclear reactors for propulsion. And now I see some cargo ships are going to start going that way. My question is, what happens to a nuclear reactor in a ship when it sinks?
Oh, that's a very good question. And so the answer is it's a problem, right? And so the Russian nuclear subs that have sunk, we've all seen the sort of issues with those. So, yeah, it's a problem, right?
Because, I'm just wondering why they're considering to put them in cargo ships. I can see the economics of it because you don't have to refuel for years, but we see cargo ships, in storms and floundering all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, piracy is becoming more and more of an issue. So I think the idea of doing that on civilian ships is a lot less well motivated than doing it on military ships. With military ships, I mean, yes, there's a possibility those things are going to be blown up, right, which is a problem. But they also have a lot of protection around them, right? So no one's going to take over a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, right?
No, I was just curious whether they had some kind of safety system that supposedly would shut it down the moment salt water touched it, but I just don't see how that would work.
Well, I mean, so I would assume, I mean, I'm not sure what reactor designs they are, but they're probably designed to have passive safety systems in them. You can do that fairly intelligently for most reactor designs. And then if you have anything that's based on some kind of modulator that you can put in, then you can shut it down slowly. You can't do it quickly. It takes a little bit of time. So, I mean,
you still have a reactor and fuel on the seabed, correct?
Well, yeah, that's what happens with the Russian subs.
Yeah. No, okay. Thanks again for your time.
All right. Thanks for the call. Take care at 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us for the Science Files with Rob Thacker. 902-405-6000. The Science Files continues when we come back. All right, we continue with the Science Files with Rob Thacker from St. Mary's University. Give us a call if you'd like to chat with Rob. Again, 902-405-6000. That is the way to get in on the fun. Again, 902-405-6000. Paul has given us a call. Hello, Paul. Hi, Paul.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, I just kind of have a two-part question, I guess, about the rate of expansion of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have the universe is expanding, and I guess the further away two objects are from each other, the faster they're moving away from each other, right?
Yep.
So then, is there, with all these new telescopes and bigger, better, greater, we can see further than we ever could before, is there still kind of a horizon to how far we can see? Because if the universe expands,
Yep.
to a point where, the speed of light can't reach the other side, or...
Sorry, I'm sitting here and I'm smiling because I'm so happy that you've thought about this, because it's awesome that you are. Okay. So,
cool.
So what you're thinking, right, is are there places in this universe that are moving away from us at faster than the speed of light, so light from them can't get to us? Right?
Exactly.
That's really what you're thinking, isn't it? And the answer to that is yes. And that is what we call the particle horizon for our universe. And so there are places that we simply cannot see. And that's why we talk about the observable universe, right? We can't actually talk about the whole universe because we literally can't see everything anyway, right? And so yes, depending upon what we call the particular cosmological model, right, you will or you won't have those horizons. There are some models where you don't have a horizon like that. But for our particular universe, where we have a cosmological constant and things are speeding up in terms of the expansion rate, then yes, we will have a horizon beyond which you can't see.
Right. Okay. And is that only, does that apply to all the wavelengths of light? Like, I know how they have...
Yeah, that will apply for all wavelengths of light in that sense that regardless of the wavelength of the light, it will still travel at the same speed.
Oh, right. Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks very much.
Okay, thanks for the call. Take care. 902-405-6000.
I'm just going to... That's awesome. Someone's thinking about the real physics of what's happening. That's a fantastic question.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. You're nerding out on it.
Yeah, I am. I'm literally nerding out. Woo!
All right.
Okay.
902-405-6000. So far, our soft survey is contradicting.
It's wrong.
We got lots of calls. And let's keep it going, folks. Give us a call. We got an open line for you. For those just tuning in, we started the show and we've been kind of keeping track of the weather when Rob's in and gauging whether that impacts calls. And today's an absolutely gorgeous day, and we've gotten a number of calls. So let's keep it going.
All two-part questions.
That's right.
So,
902-405-6000. Arnold's giving us a call. Hello, Arnold.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good.
Well.
Good. So I tend to fall asleep watching YouTube, and last night when I was asleep, I'm pretty sure I heard about Lagrange points in space.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, good. That wasn't a dream.
Yep.
Yeah, so from what I understand, it's a spot where the gravity between two different masses kind of equalizes out.
That's right, yeah.
Place to put in, like, equipment like we have solar monitoring equipment towards the sun, and I understand on the other side of the Earth, that's where we put like the James Webb Space Telescope.
Got it. Yep, that's right.
What's equalizing on that side of the Earth to keep the James Webb Telescope just from drifting out in space?
So that's what you've got to remember here, right? And we tend to sometimes forget this. Lagrange points are between two objects, but remember one of those objects is orbiting, right? So while what we call the L1 point we tend to think of as being, the L1 point is the point between two objects where the gravitational forces cancel one another out, okay? So that particular point, it's really sort of like intuitive and understandable. But there are, in fact, a number of Lagrange points, right? And so what you're talking about is something called the L2 point, which is actually way out beyond the Earth, beyond the moon, sorry. And so then you've got to remember what's coming into the system, right, is the fact that the Earth is orbiting and you've got that motion going around, right? That's the key thing you have to remember. And it's the same thing for the L4, to a certain extent, L4 and L5 points, although there's a geometry argument for those as well. So got to remember that things are moving in these systems too. Right, that's the important point.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Awesome, thanks.
No problem.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. Eric, hello.
Hey, good afternoon, guys.
Hi there.
I left it hanging about a couple of weeks ago regarding the sun. The sun sets in the west, comes up in the east, but why does it take so long to get back to our neck of the woods?
What do you mean by that, Eric?
Okay, well, we had it about a year ago, and I understand that it's going to take a while before it gets back here so we could see the total eclipse of the sun.
Oh, okay. So when you can see an eclipse, is that what you want to know about?
Yeah, and then I'll end it with another question, and then I'll get off the phone and hear what you got to say.
Sure. And so with eclipses, so it's actually really complicated because the Earth is going around the sun in a not perfectly circular orbit, but on top of that, the moon is going around the Earth in an orbit that, again, is not perfectly circular, but it's inclined, right? And so to actually get a perfect total solar eclipse, not only does the moon have to be the right distance away, because sometimes we get what's called annular eclipses where it doesn't cover the whole thing, right? It has to be the right distance away. And on top of that, it has to be perfectly aligned, right, in terms of the plane of the Earth and the sun, and then the Earth and the moon as well. So you've got to have all of those things coincide. And that happens pretty rarely. Although, here's the really interesting thing. A lot of the times they will happen in fairly close pairs. You'll have a total solar eclipse, and then either a year later, you'll have a partial eclipse or something like that. And so we actually just had that. We had the total solar eclipse last year, and then this year we had a partial eclipse as well.
Okay, and the moon sometimes is bright orange. Is that because the sun's behind the moon?
So that happens when we have a lunar eclipse. And so what's happening then is that the moon is moving through light that's gone through the Earth's atmosphere and has been reddened by going through the Earth's atmosphere. Okay, so that sort of like quote unquote blood moon appearance that only happens for like a period during a lunar eclipse.
Okay, and up north, I think it's in Arctic or someplace up there, they don't get no sun at all. Why don't they get any sun?
Well, I mean, they get no sun some time of the year because they're literally, if you can imagine the Earth as a spinning top, right? If you go to a certain point of the sun where you're literally facing away, then you're actually tipped over far enough that you don't get to see the sun. But the flip side of it is you go 6 months later, then you're tipped towards the sun and you get sun all day. Okay? So you flip between the two.
Oh, very good. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, pal. Take care. Thanks for the call. 902-405-6000. Here's an email question. This from Judith. It says, explain how magnetic induction cooktop works. How does the magnet create heat?
So that's a general process that happens with certain metals, if I can remember correctly, right? It's only going to happen with certain combinations of metals. And so in that situation, induction is what happens when you use a magnetic field. And then you'll create, as long as you have a full circuit, you'll create a circuit that goes around, right? And that circuit going around, if you have metal with a certain amount of resistance, that's going to create heat, right? And so that's the general process. You have something that's inducing a current, that current is going around and creating heat.
Wow, it's amazing how all this stuff gets so many applications, eh?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things that we always wonder about is, I mean, how did someone discover this in the first place?
Yeah, that's right.
And that's literally what scientists do. Like, you're messing around trying to sort of find something out, and lo and behold, you find out that you can have something like this.
Yeah, and magnets, of course, with MRIs, of course, and on.
Some of it, I will say, the more complicated it gets, the more I'm like, whoa, that's pretty amazing that we figured all of that out, right?
How does it create an image, I guess?
Well, all of that is about how you tune the particular frequencies, right? And so then you can use that to sort of like figure out precisely where the field is actually operating within its area, right? And so I can't remember all the details. I mean, funnily enough, where I did my undergraduate degree, Nottingham University is famous for the development of magnetic resonance stuff. So, but I can't remember it all off the top of my head.
Well, shame on you, Rob.
Oh, sorry.
What a disappointment you are. No, just kidding. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us for the Science Files. Again, 902-405-6000. The Science Files continues when we come back. All right, the Science Files continues with Dr. Rob Thacker, 902-405-6000. We're going to have a good run today, folks. Lots of good calls, and we're bucking the trend of nice weather, and it's pretty good, right?
We're learning about the scientific method.
That's right. So there you go, folks. So let's keep it going. Give us a call. We get some room for you. 902-405-6000. Charles, hello.
Hi, Todd. How you doing? Dr.
Well.
Rob, this is the first time for me calling in.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you, sir.
And I'm just trying to bump up your soft survey numbers.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
So, Dr. Rob, here's the question. I'm sure it was asked before. I just hope I can articulate it well. When you think about the planets, and we always refer to them as a plane of existence or just a straight line, and yet here we sit in space above and beyond. I'm thinking north and south. There's planets below and above. I mean, all over us. But can you comment on that or just add some clarity to that? Because I can't get my head or my mind around the fact that one plane, we always refer to our 9 planets as almost like a straight line, when in fact I don't think they are.
Okay. So it's good that you think they're not in a straight line, because they're almost never, ever in a straight line. That's fine. But they are close to being all in pretty much the same plane. If you can think about like a tabletop, they're all kind of like orbiting around on pretty much the same plane. And that plane is called the plane of the ecliptic. And if your head is being a bit skeptical for why that happened, that's actually a natural thing to occur. So when the solar system was formed, the sun was forming at the same time, and all of the material in what we call the pre-solar nebula was spinning around. And as the system spins around, it will pick out a preferred direction, right? And then you will start having everything kind of collapse into a single plane of spinning. A little bit like if you spin pizza dough, it's just going to pick out one particular plane and spin around that as you throw it around, right? Similar kind of thing, not exactly the same, but generally kind of similar.
Gotcha. That's a good analogy. I can get my head around that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess maybe the follow up is that when we're looking at space and the planets, are we really, when we're looking at space, are we looking above and beyond? Like, I mean, I'm thinking where we sit, there would be all kinds of planets below us.
Okay. I get your question. I know what you're getting at, right? So you're thinking, like, if we look at other like planetary systems, are they going to be aligned the same way we are and things like that? And the answer to that is no. Right. They're not. And so when we look at other planetary systems, we have a pretty strong bias right now that if we're looking for them in terms of planetary transits, where the planet goes in front of the star and we just see that so-called blink of a star, right? That means it is aligned with us, but the vast majority of them are not going to be, right? So it's really kind of nuts, because we've detected thousands of planets now, but there's an enormous number more, right, that are not lined that way, that at the moment we don't have a really reliable way of detecting them.
Gotcha. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a day. Enjoy your day. Thank you.
Right.
Thanks for the call.
Right, take care. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us for the Science Files. Again, we get some room for you folks and time to the top of the hour. Again, 902-405-6000. While we wait for perhaps another call or two to bolster our numbers, again, to help us with our soft survey, folks. You've been great so far today. 902-405-6000. Let's get into a couple things that you sent me. This one on traffic, because there's so much talking about traffic.
No, I think this is a good one to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. New York City intersections see 1/3 fewer pedestrian injuries with longer head start intervals. Very interesting. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so this is like providing a really big study on this idea of leading pedestrian intervals. So we've all seen it. We've got this in Halifax now, where you're at the traffic lights. The first thing to go now is the green traffic light for the pedestrians to get into the intersection and start crossing before the cars are turning left, right, whatever, right? And so I know there's a few people who are like, oh, I want to beat the pedestrian, but that's when you have accidents. And so having this head start actually leads to a significant reduction, a 33% reduction in this case for the statistics. But I want to point out something that I think is more important than just that basic reduction in the total pedestrian injuries, right? The fatal pedestrian crashes dropped by 65%, right? Now, it's just in the daylight hours. It can be a little bit more difficult at nighttime because you're only seeing pedestrians in some cases once you actually start turning in, right? That's an issue, but anyway. So this is research from, guess how many intersections? 6,000 intersections, right? So they've obviously covered a lot of issues such as visibility, traffic number of pedestrians, and things like that. And so typically the amount of lead time they think works generally well is between 7 to 11 seconds. 11 sounds like a lot, but if you've got a very wide crossing, then yeah, I can kind of get it. Right, so this is a really, really good study in detail. I think it's published in one of the Nature publications. So this is pretty significant, and I think it's just going to be a useful data point for all of those city planners who are like trying to cut down on pedestrian injuries.
Very interesting. Yeah. All right, Patrick's giving us a call. Hello, Patrick.
Hello.
Hi there. Go ahead.
Hi. Yeah. Sorry if I just tuned in and it sounded like it was maybe my question, but it's to deal with our moon versus the other moons, like Jupiter's moon or moons versus ours, and why ours is so
big.
It's just like it's equal amount of distance away from us to the sun.
All right. Okay. So So the whole thing with the sun is, as far as we can tell, I mean, that literally is just a total cosmic coincidence, right? So I know that sounds kind of incredible, but there are in fact people who've done studies of where you would need to be in other planets in the solar system and whether they ever get something that's as similar as our total solar eclipse. And the answer is I don't think there's anywhere else that gets them as often as we do. I could be wrong, but there's sort of like literally studies that have been done on this. And so I think what we have is pretty incredible. I will point out that the moon is slowly going away from the Earth, and so there is a point in the future, in a few 100 million years or a few billion years, whatever it is, at which point there will no longer be any more total solar eclipses, right? So it will stop at some point, right? And generally there's fewer and fewer of them as time goes on, but really it takes a very long time for that to happen. And so the last thing about like how amazing and unique the Earth and Moon system is in terms of the Moon being so big relative to the Earth. I mean, the best explanation we have is that it was formed in a collision, right? There was a proto-Earth, and then there was another sort of like proto-planet that came in, big smash, big debris field formed. Some of that rained back down on the Earth, some of that coalesced into forming the Moon, and that's how you wind up with this pretty incredible system that we have.
Would you consider that being like one of the reasons why we have life on this rock? Because of our moon and because of that anomaly?
Right. So there's people who've thought about this carefully. And so I've talked about it on the show before, something called the rare earth hypothesis by Professors Ward and Brownlee at Washington State. And so part of the reasoning in the rare earth hypothesis is that perhaps you need a planetary moon system that forms tides. And why do you need tides? And the idea is when you have tides, you have an evaporation process because as the tide goes out, you're left with pools. And so those pools naturally evaporate water. And over a period of time, if they have chemicals in them, you will have chemical concentration, right? And so there have been arguments made that this might be a factor in producing all of the nucleic acids that then go into something like RNA and after RNA, presumably DNA. Right. And so there are people who argue for that, but it's a pretty difficult argument to make sort of like 100% convincing. Right. There may be other ways that we simply just don't know about for doing the concentration process.
No, great. Thank you. You answered more than I asked. So thank you very much and have a good day, guys.
All right. Great stuff. Take care. Let's try and get one more on just because you took the time to call. Eric, hello.
Hey, good day.
Hi there.
First time caller.
Great. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, just maybe a dumb question. I don't know.
Oh, those are often really hard.
That's right.
So I know that the globe is round. So when you're flying all over the globe, when you fly down to Australia, how come, are you upside down or are you? What's the?
I'm going to say wherever you are, you're still on top.
Okay,
but that's the way to think about it. The one thing I will sort of like encourage you to think about if you ever travel down to Australia or something like that is to look at the moon, right, when you're there, right? Because the moon is going to look the other way up, right? And a lot of people, when they see that, they go, what? No, that's normal. I've just like confused. And you're like, no, you go from here down to there. You're literally seeing the moon from a different angle, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't, like I said, where it's round and you look like you're on the bottom. So
why doesn't it feel like you're on the bottom? Because wherever you are, the natural gravitational pull is always going to go through your feet. And so wherever you are, you're always going to feel like you're kind of standing upwards. You can't get away from that feeling.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Eric. Thanks for the call. Good question.
Yeah. No.
All right, take care. Thanks for the questions, everybody. We appreciate it very much. Good time, Rob Thacker.
Yeah, it was an awesome hour. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, great stuff. That's Rob Thacker. That's the Science Files. We do that each and every Tuesday from noon until 1. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks to Vanessa Vandeness, as always, on the other side of the glass. The control board is doing a fine job, as always. We're back tomorrow, 10 o'clock. See you then.